Good evening. This is a public hearing of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The zoning ordinance empowers us to hear references from the City Council, petitions from other parties for variances and special uses and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator. We hear testimony from those in advance and make formal findings of fact based on the evidence presented, which consists of testimony and exhibits and on our knowledge of the community. We then either make a determination or recommendation to the City Council. Testimony is taken under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence and procedures, we ask that you keep your testimony relevant to the proposal as it relates to the standards contained in the zoning ordinance. When you testify, please state your name and address for the record and print your name on the sign-in sheet provided outside the door. Each case will be introduced by staff and a list of documents will be read into the record. Then the applicant will be given an explanation of the proposal. After that, those who wish to testify as either proponents or opponents of the case will have the chance to do so, and then the applicant will have a chance to respond. Any case not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next meeting. Melissa, please call the roll.
Lisa Deacon.
Present.
Mary McCauley.
Present.
Scott Gingold.
Present.
Violetta Cullen.
Here.
Mirna Aravallo.
Here.
Kirill Miranchev.
Here.
And Jill Zordan.
Okay. I will now swear in anyone who plans to give testimony in any of the cases scheduled for tonight. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you provide in connection with this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. First order of business is approval of the meeting minutes from October 15th. Would anybody like to make that motion?
I move to make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of October 15th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, number 3, new business. We have several items on the agenda tonight with different status. I am going to read the address and ask Melissa to give me the status of the cases. So the first one is 1224 Oak Street.
The case needs to be continued to our next meeting on December 3rd. It has not yet received a DAPR recommendation.
Thank you. How about 1804 Maple?
That case will be heard tonight.
And the respondents are in the room. Okay, 2715 Hurd Street.
That case has been withdrawn by the applicant.
Okay. 1012 to 1014 Davis Street.
Will be heard tonight.
And the respondents are in the room. Okay. 1031 Sherman Avenue.
That case will likely be withdrawn, but has not been at this point, so that case needs to be continued to December 3rd as well.
Okay, so tonight we will be hearing 1804 Maple and 1012 to 1014 Davis Street. Okay. Let's start with 1804 Maple. Will the respondent please approach the podium, and Melissa, will you read it into the record?
Good evening.
One moment. She's going to read it into the record.
Sure.
PharmaCann LLC, lessee, submits for a special use for a cannabis dispensary to establish sales of recreational cannabis and expand the existing medical cannabis space in the RP Research Park District, zoning code section 61223. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes a recommendation to City Council, the determining body for this case.
Thank you. Will the respondent approach the podium? Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Katrina McGuire from Thompson Coburn. Office is at 55 East Monroe, Chicago, Illinois 60603. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. We're here this evening for a special use to establish a recreational cannabis dispensary at 1804 Maple Avenue. With me this evening are Don Williams from MedMen, as well as several other representatives from MedMen, should you have any questions of them. I want to just give you a brief overview. We had appeared in front of both Plan Commission as well as City Council in Evanston as the city undertook to regulate recreational cannabis. As many of you are familiar, in July of this year, the state legislature approved the sale of recreational cannabis, essentially legalized recreational cannabis in the state of Illinois effective January 1. One of the factors that they did or they looked at is for existing medical facilities, existing medical dispensaries, those would be permitted to co-locate or to add the sale of recreational cannabis as part of their medical dispensary, subject to local zoning regulations. The city of Evanston undertook to regulate recreational sales by way of a special use in most zoning districts, including the relevant one here today. This is a site that I'm sure is familiar to all of you. It is actually owned by the city of Evanston, a unique condition where the city of Evanston is actually our landlord here. It has been operating as a medical dispensary now for several years. One reference point here or clarification, we're here, the applicant is PharmaCann LLC. That is the name of the license holder that the state has, and that was accordingly why it was filed as PharmaCann LLC. MedMen is in the process of acquiring that license, and that is in the process of being approved by the state. We expect that to occur here in short order. Also, as part of this is that the lease with the city of Evanston is in the process of being amended. And city council, city attorneys are actually working on amending the lease as well. One of the factors in the lease is that we are going to be expanding into what is now the Enterprise Rent-A-Car space directly adjacent to the medical dispensary to make it a little more functional for purposes of recreational sales. Enterprise will be relocating within the same building. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Don Williams from MedMen, who's going to introduce MedMen to you a little bit and talk about the operations. We're all available for any questions should you have them.
Thank you, Don Williams, 410 South 7th Street in St. Charles, Illinois. I'm here for MedMen. I apologize first and foremost that we are such a protected and regulated industry that all the slides that I had prepared for you, you cannot see. But I will do my best when I get back home to try to give you all the presentation post of us talking here today. With me is a number of folks from our MedMen Evanston team, and as they will come up for questions, they'll actually introduce themselves. We ask today that the zoning board grant us a special use permit so we can participate in adult use sales and Illinois legalization on January 1st, 2020. Our site is at 1804 Maple Avenue. MedMen has been founded since 2010, and we are North America's premier cannabis retailer. We operate in 6 different states with 32 operational retail locations, and we have processed over 2 million retail transactions in 2018. We believe a world where cannabis is legal and regulated is safer, healthier, and happier. And as the Midwest Regional Director for them, I'm responsible for engaging with community, thought leaders, elected officials, and staff to build deep relationships in the communities in where we operate. We know our success is based truly on those relationships that we build with our neighbors. So in terms of community engagement, we will join the local Chamber of Commerce here, neighborhood associations. We will invest financially in those local community-based organizations, and our retail staff will quarterly volunteer at local nonprofits. And before we even open the store, we will be canvassing the neighborhood and knocking on doors and inviting folks to our soft opening of our store. Our commitment to legal compliance. For every store, we will also institute a compliance program consisting of a compliance checklist where each store has a living compliance checklist, which is checked off daily by the general manager that contains state and local requirements for a retail cannabis operation. Internal audits. Each retail store is audited internally on a quarterly basis by our dedicated compliance team, which is part of the compliance department.
Sorry, let me interrupt you there.
Sure.
What are the sorts of things that will be on the living compliance checklist?
Maria, somebody can speak to that real quick? Sure, come on up.
Pierre Omar Delgado, 1132 Lake Street, Oak Park, 60301. Okay, so we're referring to the audit checklist that we do, correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So what we do in those checklists is we ensure that there's, from the IDFPR, which is the governing body for dispensing in Illinois, they have certain compliances that we need to amend to. So we utilize their guidelines and do a checklist daily. Some of those things are doing daily inventory. assuring that BioTrack, which is the state system that we use to manage all the cannabis products, is lining up with our physical inventory. And then also in regards to ID processing, ensuring that people that are coming in are legally able to purchase cannabis. So those are just a couple of the things that are on it, but it's a pretty detailed list.
What else other than inventory and ID checking? What
So
are the
there's
other
gonna be-
things that you're subject to compliance on?
So other than compliance issues, there wouldn't be anything other than for the audit. But again, though the audit is very detailed, other things that would go into it would be like limits in regards to purchasing limits. There's other things that factor in regards to how many people can be in this space when we're dispensing items. So there's those things.
So how do you manage that?
So as far as the audit goes, we do that on a weekly basis. We have a physical checklist that we go off of, and then the actual governing body, which is the IDFPR, comes in once a quarter and does a backup audit on us. And then additionally, we have auditors within the company that come in, and they do just random audits to ensure that we're in compliance with it.
Okay, so I'm confused now. You testified there's a daily checklist, but you just said there's a weekly audit. So what is done on a daily basis versus weekly basis?
So on the daily, it would be more operational based. So basically, like anything that we do in regards to like opening and daily as well, we do inventory every day. So those are some of the components that we utilize on a daily basis. So there's like the operations where it's opening and closing checklists that we do. So those are the audits that he was referring to. And then as far as like compliance-based audits for the state, we utilize those on the weekly at the store level.
Okay, and how are you managing the other issues you mentioned? For example, IDs. Do you take pictures of IDs? How do you?
So our system that we utilize is called LeafLogix, and what we do is we scan them in, and then the state system recognizes them as well. They're integrated, so we just scan them in, and it provides us with the information needed.
And how are you managing the number of people in the stores?
So we have occupancy numbers. Here at this store, for example, it's going to be 115 that we can utilize. If it goes any further than that, we'll utilize employees to help with stanchions, and we'll be checking them in and ensuring that we have a nice line and we're just keeping everybody nicely organized.
So I read that in the documents that you presented to Dapper, and it made me wonder, do you have people lining up around the block
So at this moment, we're not, but what we're trying to do is just prepare for a worst case. So if we had lines to that extent, we want to make sure that we're as prepared as possible to deal with it.
Right, well, I think it mentioned in the documents that in some more highly populated areas, perhaps New York and Los Angeles, West Hollywood, I think was given as an example, there were, I won't say virtual stampedes, but there was a need to regulate the crowds.
So I can't speak specifically to what happened in New York or Los Angeles, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
What we can speak to, though, is that obviously to that end, because we are probably the one company in Illinois that has transitioned from a medical market to a recreational market, we have history with that. So obviously we'll be well prepared. And if need be, we have to partner with the police here locally in Evanston to ensure that we have a consistent flow of traffic and we're not impeding any barriers of any existing businesses. We're looking at right now a transaction count of anywhere up to 40 transactions per hour, meaning 40 people coming in, and even in a recreational sense. Those are the numbers that we're getting from all of our other stores. So we will be well prepared and staff, and the folks here can actually talk about the staffing levels and how many folks we'll have from a one-to-one basis. It's almost like a 2 to 3 basis of 2 associates to every 3 customers that come into the door. So we'll be well staffed to maintain all that. From a historical sense, we're probably the one company that will be opening up on January 1st that has a history of transitioning from medical to recreational cannabis.
Okay.
I read in the materials that you are planning on engaging a security firm to provide security on site?
Yes, I don't know the exact name of the security firm. You guys, anyone? GSG? GSG Security Company.
And will those people be on site during all hours of operation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we probably will, I think at the beginning point that we're going to be looking at is at least having 2, and obviously assessing if we need more. And those people will be actually in the store checking the IDs, but also periodically between the associates, the managers, and the security folks assessing the perimeter so that people aren't loitering, littering, and or consuming any products on the premise or even on the street for that matter.
And then also, can you tell me about the plans? I also read about the closed circuit alarm system. Can you tell me what the purpose of that is and how it'll function?
Sure. Let me just get to my notes. If you like, I'll just go through real quickly from when a customer actually comes into the door and the security system that's engaged from the get-go, as well as the cameras that are there. Upon entry, a customer will be greeted and their ID will be actually scanned by a handheld device, which creates and brings up their customer profile and then acts as their ID verification. As well is that the handheld device will also permit our associates to check in inventory deliveries. Upon completion of the sale, the inventory will be marked as sold in our custom software. The store is stocked with what we call a high-resolution security video cameras with at least 2 megapixels and infrared illumination so that you do have night vision there, with full interior and exterior views, viewed 24 hours a day at our headquarters. We like to say that there are no dark spots within any of our facilities. And more importantly, as we've done this across the country, we actually provide resources to local police departments because of our security cameras that are outside. If anything would exist on the outside perimeter of the store, we actually provide that feed directly to the police department. And in every locality that we're situated in, we always have that connection where the police can actually view our feed at any point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, let me ask you, are you saying that your associate will be with the customer from the time of entry all the way through their sale?
Yes.
And I'm sorry.
Yes. I don't want to misspeak though. So
Yes. Okay, so they'll lead them through the buying process. And so are you going to have the same spaces for your recreational as your medical customers?
yes, at this point in time, the only thing that we're going to be doing inside of the store that's currently in position is actually nothing cosmetic in the sense of breaking down walls. We're actually going to be moving some tables in some areas that were previously marked for consultation areas. We're actually changing that thing around. So we're actually opening up the floor plan to actually accommodate more guests. And then we have display tables that you will see where we have dummy products within the display tables, and we have iPads on top of those where it explains what those ingredients are that may be in each display table. And so all that will be on the floor and allow for the customer to actually have a deeper experience when they come in versus what's there right now with medical.
Okay, thank you.
Have you had any security issues in this location while you've been operating as a medical dispensary?
I can't speak for that because MedMen has not operated this location, but I don't think that they're anything of record.
No, I mean, when we had, sorry, again, Katrina McGuire for the record, when we appeared before both the Plan Commission and the City Council and presenting the whole concept of recreational cannabis, and again, in our partnership with the City of Evanston as our landlord, there's a fair amount of testimony that we had been a good neighbor, that there had been no significant issues at this location at all.
Can you speak to your proposed hours of operation?
Yeah, we're actually going to be following the city guidelines of being open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Sunday. So we're open 7 days a week.
And can you clarify the products that will be sold on site?
You, in the sense of medical to recreational?
The types of cannabis products they were talked about in the packet. I guess what I'm getting at is you spoke of the security firm preventing people from using products inside the store, on the exterior of the building, and on the sidewalk. So you will be selling cannabis. You'll be selling cannabis to smoke, right?
Yes.
So the security will Right, and to eat, yes, yes, I understand that. Thank you. So then the outside security will be monitoring so that it doesn't become a big smoke scene there on the exterior of the building?
Yes, and as well, the statute does not change in the state of Illinois in regards to consumption outside. That will be, that's why we will have security, and if we do see people that are doing it, obviously there'll be a conversation between the security, but if it escalates, obviously that is something we would actually utilize the Evanston Police Department about as well, too.
Right, and just to clarify, although the state is legalizing recreational cannabis, the public consumption of it is not being legalized. You cannot wander in the street, the same way that you might be able to smoke a cigarette, you cannot wander on the street consuming cannabis. That is not permitted. And there will be no on-site consumption here either.
So then presumably, forgive me, I'm trying to come up to speed on the whole cannabis issue. So, I mean, we're being asked to consider a special use, but I'm also sort of coming up to speed on the cannabis issue. So presumably, people are buying these products to consume in their home, is what you're saying?
Yes.
I mean, you have to think about it a little bit. You know, again, we've all come up to speed on this, right? It's a
Yeah.
very new law. It's a lot like going to Binny's to purchase, you know, wine or whatever it is. You're not going to pull it out of there and sit in your car and consume it. Do people ever do something like that? I'm sure they do. But that's, you know, an enforcement issue, right, overall. But it's the same idea. You will go purchase it and you will go consume it in your home.
And then I have a question for staff. When the Plan Commission and City Council was considering recreational cannabis as an allowed use in Evanston, is there any sort of provision? So if a special use is granted here, is there any sort of provision to review that special use after a certain increment of time?
Not within the city code. That could be a condition of approval.
Thank you.
And certainly, just to clarify, to the extent that anybody were to violate, right, or to become a nuisance or become a problem, the city certainly has under its, you know, police powers, enforcement authority to arguably revoke somebody's special use as well.
So can we talk about operationally now, how many employees will be working on site at a given time?
So we're anticipating the staff total to be 50, and then per day, you'll be looking at anywhere from 20 to 28 people working a day.
Okay, and so how do you anticipate that they'll get to and from work? Will they drive? Will they be
I would say it would
riding?
vary. Currently in the stores it varies. There's some people that use public transportation. I would say the majority of them use public transportation and some drive.
So what I'm getting at, obviously, is a lot of times when special uses come up, we condition the special use on employees not utilizing metered parking in the commercial areas because they're meant for shoppers, so to speak. So can you make arrangements, or have you looked into arrangements for employee parking?
I don't think we've made specific provisions for employee parking. It's certainly a condition that I think we're certainly comfortable agreeing to. One of the things that we're committed to is hiring from within the community as well. It's a significant number of jobs, and we look to hire from within the community too, which would again hopefully prevent, you know, some people taking public transportation, perhaps riding bikes, walking as well. It's obviously an urban environment, so people will be traveling here in a variety of ways, would be our expectation.
When you speak to hiring from within the community, I understand that Oakton Community College has I think a relatively new program in this area. Have there been any conversations in discussion with Oakton about, you know, some sort of, you know, working with them in that regard?
Exactly that. Actually, we partner with the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois, and we actually did the first job fair at Oakton Community College. We had at least 300 applicants actually come through the door, and just for our facility alone, we probably have interviewed at least 100 qualified applicants. So it was perfect for us that just right down the street in Des Plaines, we actually found quite a few applicants. So to that point, I think when we look at transportation in our existing location in Oak Park, as well as this one, we're fortunate to have two sites on major intersections that are close to trains and buses. There is parking available, but obviously, like anyone else, parking becomes very expensive at times, but we anticipate most of our employees will be using some sort of public transportation to get to work.
And what is the age restriction of people that are allowed to come in and purchase?
No one can come in that is not 21 and over. Even if you're coming in and you don't have an ID, you cannot get into the door. You have to have a valid form of identification, and you have to be 21.
I saw in the packet outlining the proximity of this location, of course, to elementary and middle school, and I guess the high schools as well. We have a letter that we received this evening talking about the proximity of this location to Northwestern University, and their concern that this would be would attract students from the university. So I hear you're saying that students under 21, of course, would not be allowed to purchase here, but those students at Northwestern that are over the age of 21 would be allowed to purchase here.
Sure.
They must also, though, be Illinois residents. Is that not true?
No.
They don't have to be Illinois residents.
There is a consumption level, or actually consumption, a limit for a person that's outside of Illinois versus a resident of Illinois.
As far as what they can purchase at any given time.
Yes.
And where is the next closest recreational dispensary anticipated to be outside of Evanston? What other neighboring communities, for example?
I think right now the only one that I know of that's it would be Rogers Park.
Muskogee,
There's one going in Skokie on Old Orchard Road.
right by Old Orchard.
But
And
that is
Skokie Road.
that is proposed, so that's not,
Right.
Well, but I think it's, right, I think the timing is, I think it's approved.
yeah, it's approved.
Sir, could you describe your deliveries? What size truck, how often, where they would happen?
You want to come up and do?
Would you mind repeating that for me? I'm sorry.
Your deliveries to your product or whatever you're going to have in your store. How often will you have deliveries? What size truck? Where will they happen in the rear?
Oh, okay. So yeah. Sorry, deliveries they really vary, but typically we deal with 14 different vendors, and so each of them tend to be on a bi-weekly. So you're looking on average about 7 every week. They don't come every day of the week, so it just kind of varies depending on when we order. But on average, you're looking at about 7 a week that we get in.
Is that by a special truck or will it come like?
It comes in unmarked van.
Like an unmarked van,
Yes.
FedEx?
I want to
Okay.
speak to the security protocol as well when what happens with it.
Yeah, so sure. So whenever we're receiving shipments, we call them. So whenever we receive shipments, they'll give us a call when they're out about like 20 minutes or so. Oh, because they're always just trying to vary it so you can't like anticipate when they're going to show up, kind of like an armored car would do. So we want to just make sure that they're unmarked. They're never at a certain time that they're doing it. They'll give us a heads up, and then we bring the security guards out to let them into the actual dispensary.
It happens through the parking garage in back of you
Correct.
or in the front?
So we anticipate it's through the back now. I haven't specifically taken in a shipment at this location as of yet.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I've got one question. It just, reading in your packet that you would notify clients immediately if there was a recall, and that you're purchasing the products that you're selling from manufacturers, I think outside of the state.
No, everything has to be.
They're
inside the
all
state.
in Illinois. I think that it was also noted in your packet that they're not yet federally regulated because the federal government is not recognizing the legality of marijuana at this point. Obviously, if you've been in the medical dispensary business for some time, you've had a lot of communication with those providers to know which may have, I know that in other states, in Colorado, for example, there have been a number of issues with regard to edibles and just how how easy it is to abuse them because of the latent effect of the THC. So how well have the providers that you use been vetted by the state and by chemists who actually can say what is in the product? And have there been any recalls from your dispensary?
I can't exactly speak to any of the recall. I will tell you that the state of Illinois probably has one of the most stringent and regulated laws in regards to medical cannabis, from tracking it from seed to actually sell. And because of that, you have not heard any issues of any sort of recall. Things that happen in Colorado, it's a lot different story once you cross the Mississippi and get into the state of Illinois. And speaking on the government relations behalf, I will tell you what we have in regards to the recreational cannabis law is mirror that of medical. So nothing actually will change in the facilities that we have today. The existing cultivation facilities that are in existence today are the only ones that will be producing products from this point on in a recreational market. There will be a time when they're going to be allowed craft growers, but they will not have the canopy size of the existing cultivation facilities. But in regards to the Department of Agriculture, just like we talked about with the state coming into our dispensaries, the Department of Agriculture goes into cultivation facilities on a weekly basis as well, too, looking at all the products that we produce and process.
Sorry, I want to make sure I understood your testimony. So you're saying that the Illinois regulations regarding product quality for medical are the same regulations that will apply to recreational?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sure.
And then just to add something to your point, so any product that's intended for sale is all sent down for lab testing, and for every batch, so meaning every single item that we sell, those are available for anybody that comes in to purchase. So you can literally see what's been tested within the product down to every single component of it.
And can I assume then that there are guidelines, for example,
Yes.
that you can say you can expect this product to, begin to take effect in 2 hours. So therefore, big cautions, don't
Yes.
eat 6 of them.
Yes. And then we'll make sure as when we deal with a patient or a customer that we advise them on that as well.
Can you talk to your training as well, too, of your associates to speak to that point, though?
Yeah, so we do 10 days worth of training. And additionally, once we go through that, we ensure that people are comfortable making the right calls and giving people information in regards to the product that they're going to be consuming. So we set a standard of, we give them at least 10 days before they are going to give anybody a recommendation as far as like what product to utilize. But even after that, we will make sure, and we always do, that we're giving people the appropriate information, because obviously we want people to have the best experience that they can when ingesting our product. So we take that very seriously.
The one thing I would add as well, too, is that we avail ourselves to any municipality in regards to doing educational programs and libraries for adults that do want to consume products. And we've done this basically at the medical level. But we try to do ongoing training with our consumers to really talk about safe packaging, primarily about how you ingest things, but also taking those products home and storing those away from your children as well, too. So we provide as much consumer training as possible whenever we can, but we always are open to any municipality that asks for us to come in and do these on-site trainings as well, too, for consumers.
So I have a question. So what's the difference then between selling the medical marijuana and then now the recreational? How are you transitioning from that, I guess, that market to now this new market? What is the difference between what you're doing right now with the medical versus the recreational? Where is the difference?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, the real difference is that the medical patients still have essentially a medical card, right, or licensed and vetted.
Right, but what does that change now for your new customers? Obviously, they don't need a card, so
That's
then what happens to the medical?
So the state requires that priority still be given to medical patients and that a certain amount of product be maintained for your medical customers as well.
Okay.
But what we have seen in other states is that the medical sort of market, the population of medical patients diminishes over time. And it's really becomes a situation where people who have a medical condition and choose to consume for that purpose, if it's available recreationally, they just don't bother to go through the registration process at the state level in order to become medical patients. They'll just enter a dispensary and indicate what their condition is and be provided the advice as to what product might give them the relief that they need. But you do see a diminishing number of medical patients over time simply because people just don't go through the registration process. Did that answer your question, ma'am?
Kind of. But so what's the difference between,
It's
I
the
guess?
same products.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
okay.
I understand that. But, so medically, if you're supposed to reserve more for the medical side versus recreational, what's the difference? I can sell 2 packages of gummies as recreational, but I can sell 5 packages as medical?
Yeah.
Well, so I would say the general difference first is going to be the taxing overall. Right now, as a medical patient, you're getting taxed at a lot lower percentage than you would coming in as a recreational consumer. So that's the fundamental difference in it. In regards to how we're going to sell, you just sell to your limits. The state already has those built in, so we can't exceed those one way or the other. The thing that she's speaking to in regards to we're going to allocate 30% of our inventory, meaning that we cannot run out for medical purposes, right? So if we have a long line and we're running through our product and we're taking actual inventory as we're going through the day, and we see that we hit a certain point, which is our threshold that we can't go under for medical patients, then we have to turn away recreational consumers at that point and only serve medical.
Okay.
Okay.
How many different markets are you operating in currently?
There's at least over 30 markets that we're in currently today.
And you spoke of the different, I think you called them educational programs that you can make aware in those communities. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you work in any of those communities on sort of educational components in any way, either directly or through, through monetary support for education components with the youth in those communities?
I don't know that we've done that per se. I think most of the things that we've done are either through municipalities when they've actually put on events like this, or we've worked with our local chambers of commerce, or even if we've been part of community-based organizations that just because we were there in the community and part of the community, they want us to come in and do the training. So it's really ad hoc in regards to how we work with the various groups all over the country.
Are there any more questions from the board?
Yeah, I have some questions for Ms. McGuire, just on technical. So
Sure.
I think you were saying earlier that the license holder is actually, who is the license holder?
Under the state, it's PharmaCann LLC.
Okay. And MadMen has acquired PharmaCann.
No, they're going to acquire this license.
Okay. And so PharmaCann, though, is the applicant for this special use permit.
That's correct. Has to, just because they're the license holder from that standpoint.
They're the license holder, but they won't be the license holder after the license is acquired.
That is, the license will be transferred to MedMen. That is correct.
So PharmaCann will no longer hold the license.
PharmaCann LLC will no longer hold the license.
So
That
why is
correct.
MedMen not applying for the special use permit, and why is MedMen not the licensee of the space?
Because the state, it's so highly regulated that the state needs to approve the transfer of the license. So technically, MedMen, at the time of filing of the application, would not have technically legal standing to apply because they are not the license holder.
So what's going to be done along with the transfer of the license to square the corporate entities who are operating the business?
There are going to be 2 separate corporate entities.
I think I'm misunderstanding. MedMen is going to hold the license to operate a recreational facility.
That's correct. And will
PharmaCann
be the
is-
tenant with the city of Evanston as well.
Okay, I thought it said PharmaCann is the lessee.
Currently, yes, under the current lease. It's PharmaCann LLC operates the Verilife dispensary there right now.
Okay.
And that's who the lease is with right now.
So-
Because that was the current license holder.
So PharmaCann is not going to operate. PharmaCann LLC is not going to operate the space we're talking about.
That's correct.
It's going to be MedMen. So why isn't MedMen the applicant for the special use permit?
We felt it was appropriate to file under PharmaCann LLC simply because they are the actual state license holder of that medical license.
Okay. But they're not,
So
they're not
Pharmacan-
going to continue to be the lessee, correct? MedMen is either going to enter into a new lease or there will be a sublease?
That's correct. Yeah, if for some reason the state, we don't control the timing of the state. So the parties are working cooperatively at this level while we're sort of in this limbo as far as when the state approves it. They've obviously got a full plate of applications and various activities that are happening. So at this point, the lease, that exists with the city of Evanston is in PharmaCann's name because that's the license holder there. And that is going to either be transferred, very likely based on timing. We anticipate that that's going to happen here in very short order so that the lease is actually executed by MedMen.
Okay. Okay, got it. I think I got it.
Yeah.
Does that conclude your presentation? Any other comments?
I don't believe we have anything. We're certainly happy if there's anything that you need us to answer further. We're happy to do so.
Thank you. We're going to close the record and discuss it. Thank you. Is there anybody here from the public that wants to speak? Oh, we do have a commenter.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Matt Rogers. I live at 133 Clyde Avenue, and I'm a medical marijuana holder. I come to speak in favor of the expansion. One of the things that has concerned me with the increase in adult use being made available is how would that affect those of us who are medical card holders. And so I think by expanding this space, that helps address some of the concern because currently they can bring in about 3 people at a time to dispense product. With the popularity that will happen, I'm sure, once it becomes recreational, that will limit the number of people who are able to come through if only 3 stations remain. So an expansion is definitely necessary. I've also found the staff to be very, very knowledgeable. I know that was one of the concerns that people were talking about. I can go in and talk to them about what my particular medical issue is, what I'm looking to accomplish, and they will put me in touch with the proper strains, with the proper dosages, those sorts of things that are necessary. And on the back of every product that I get, there is a little sticker that lists when it was tested. It lists the THC content, the CBD content, the date it was packaged. I mean, it's a very regulated, you can trace the product back to the very beginning. The date it was planted, I even think, is on there. I don't know that for a fact. So I'm not concerned. I know that there was a lot of concern with, the vaping and those sorts of things that were coming out. But definitely the state of Illinois is one of the more highly regulated cannabis states that I've found. In terms of parking, this particular building is in a unique space. It's in a parking lot. So I would think that they would not have a problem parking on street. They would be able to find parking in the garage space. It's something that if you have a lot of people who are parking, it may be advantageous to you to talk to the city, since the city owns the parking lot as well, that they may give you some sort of a deal on leases there. The security of the building, I know there's a lot of questions. I'm just kind of here to sort of tell you that I'm never left alone, really, when I'm in the dispensary, and I'm sure that's the way it will continue to be for recreational. From the moment that I walk in, I have to produce my card, my ID. I can't even get into the lobby of the building. I'm in a small vestibule before I even get into the space. And the space that I enter is a lobby, and I sit and wait there. I have to go into a different room for consulting, and then beyond that is the real product. So there's several layers, and although I know it's going to change a little bit with recreational, obviously this organization has very strict protocols and follows the law that's been set out to make sure that people are not able to just kind of come and go as they choose. And finally, I would just like to say that this is really like regulating alcohol. Marijuana and alcohol, in my opinion, are really 2 very similar things. If used responsibly by adults, they can be enjoyable, they can help you cope, Medical marijuana has helped with issues that I've had during my treatments. Obviously, by making it so that no one over the age or under the age of 21 is able to purchase, it becomes very much an alcohol-like situation. And again, I know that it was mentioned, but when I buy products today, I cannot walk out and just light up, take a gummy, do any of that sort of stuff as soon as I leave the dispensary. There are very strict protocols on that. I should be at home when I do this. I should be watching when I'm driving a vehicle, obviously. They advise against that sort of stuff. So I think it's very much like for a responsible owner or a responsible user, it's not going to create a problem. And you always will have one or two irresponsible people, just like you do with alcohol, and you'll have that, I'm sure, with this. But I think that this company in particular, based on what I've seen in terms of the way they have regulated medical marijuana, I believe that they're being very responsible and that they will address those issues as they come up. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a question. Thank you for your testimony. Just to clarify, I also know that you wear the hat as sort of a zoning consultant, so I just want to clarify as it relates to your testimony, are you in any way connected with the applicant from your zoning consultant?
I am not. I do not know a single person here representing them other than having seen them at Plan Commission, those sorts of things.
Thank you.
And I would definitely make that statement clear that if I were representing them, I would make that well known if I'd had any discussions with them, and I have not.
Thank you.
So, Matt, I just have one quick question. Will the medical patients be able to butt in line?
So currently, something that's just started, and it's not been brought up, and I don't want to muddy the waters any with it. Currently, I'm able to order online. So I'm able to go to leafly.com. I can pick out the product that I want. If it's something that I'm using on a regular basis and I know what I want, if I want to consult with someone, obviously I'm not going to purchase that way. When I purchase, then I still have to go through the same process of coming in. They ask me, do you have an online purchase? I say yes. And what that does is they've already packaged that together for me. I can go to the back, they get out the bag, say, here's what we have, is this correct? I say yes, they put it in the bag, they staple it, seal it, I pay, and I'm on my way. So I'm hoping that that will continue to alleviate any issues. And I don't know what the plan is for using that for recreational versus using that for medical. That's something they would have to speak to.
So will there be some function in place to give priority to medical patients who are arriving for product?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, priority in lines, and then the online purchase ordering aspect will apply too. So that will greatly expedite repeat customers as well, once they have a profile.
Thank you. Okay, closing the record. Any comments from this board on this application?
No, it's, sorry. No, I mean, I understand the curiosity about the industry, but the state is making this legal. The city of Evanston is making this use legal. And we have a reputable applicant in terms of the industry, and they meet the requirements for special uses with the appropriate conditions, and I'm in favor of the special use.
I agree with those comments. Thank you, Scott. I would like to see some sort of condition considered here as a part of our consideration, that the city have the opportunity to consider, revisit the special use after a certain period of time to see how this is a new industry, a new use for Evanston. And I'd like there to be some sort of condition where the city has the opportunity to revisit the special use.
I think that they're probably, and I could be wrong on this, but typically there are provisions in a lease that if there is a nuisance, particularly a continued nuisance, that you can give a tenant a 30-day notice to vacate. So I think that might be part of the leasing process too. I don't know that I would add another condition rather than just have that be part of the leasing situation, which I can't imagine it is not. We
And
have
also,
that in every lease that we
we
have.
also
I
usually have a condition on special uses that the applicant comply with all the local laws as a condition of the special use. So obviously, if for some reason this business didn't comply with what Evanston requires of it, then that would jeopardize the special use without adding a let's revisit it kind of condition.
And what happens if Evanston as a community decides 1 year or 2 years in that, hey, we've seen this industry, we've tried this, and we don't really want to have, a recreational dispensary? How is that best addressed through the tools at
Yeah, I mean,
Evanston's disposal?
I think the answer to that is the city of Evanston is changing its zoning ordinance to allow this special use.
Understood.
And if the city of Evanston's representatives decided that their constituents didn't want to allow that use in Evanston any longer, they would re-amend the ordinance to remove that permission.
So then it would go back through Plan Commission into City Council to remove that use as a part of the allowable uses in that zoning
I think so.
code?
They would legislate
Melissa,
it.
is that your understanding?
They could, but if they did that, then the use would become legal non-conforming for the facility that's already open.
So then there would be no recourse if going forward constituents in Evanston and therefore their elected officials decided that this is not a preferred use in Evanston.
Following typical protocol, yes.
So then how would we address it if I am suggesting that there's some sort of way that we want to allow a tool that there's a way to consider this use after a certain period of time?
I think it strikes me rather than a condition that city council revisit this application in some period of time, we could include a condition that the granting of the special use would be for as long as that special use is permitted in the city's ordinance. Or
Also keep in mind the city is the landlord, so they could not renew the lease.
Which is the point that you made.
I mean, I think that what the applicant is doing is they're basically coming to us and saying, we're an actual credible business. And you wouldn't, people invest time and money and negotiate leases and go through an enormous process to get the licensing that they have. I don't think that the city wants to be capricious with this business any more than they would be with another business. If it becomes a nuisance, there are always stipulations in leases that would allow for addressing those problems. But so far, they've obviously been a good tenant.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay. And with that, I will read the standards, the special use standards for the ZBA. To recommend that City Council grant a special use, the ZBA must find that the proposed special use A is one of the listed special uses for the zoning district in which the property lies. This standard has been met. Pursuant to Ordinance 126-0-19, cannabis dispensary is allowed under the special use section for the RP Research Park District. B, this complies with the purposes and policies of the comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance. This standard has also been met. The use is compliant with the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive general plan. The proposal promotes the growth of an existing Evanston business, supports proximate businesses and commercial land uses, and strengthens Evanston's economic base. C, does not cause a negative cumulative effect in combination with existing special uses or as a category of land use. This standard has been met. Staff has not received until this evening in the email that was mentioned earlier, any comments opposing the proposal. The proposed use is complementary to the surrounding downtown district, and increased pedestrian activity will likely benefit proximate businesses. Staff is not aware of any negative impacts of the existing operation, which opened in 2015 as part of a lease agreement with the city. D, does not...
Excuse me, Violetta,
Yes.
I disagree. I don't think that standard has been met.
Which one? The one where it does not cause a negative cumulative effect?
Correct.
Okay. Anyone else?
Can I just ask on what grounds you would say that it does cause a negative cumulative effect, since there's been no evidence of that to date? I just,
I understand your question. I don't think that, I don't think it's related to other special uses. I think it has more to do with the category of land use, the land use category, as it relates to a recreational dispensary in Evanston. So my interpretation of that standard has not been met.
Melissa, is the proposed use complementary to the surrounding downtown district and increased pedestrian activity will likely benefit the proximate businesses? For that standard?
I think that's the interpretation of each individual member of the board. It's the staff's opinion that it's complementary, that based on the packet. So then it's upon each member of the board to determine whether they believe that standard has been met.
Correct.
Okay. D, does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. That standard has been met. The proposed use is located in the storefront level of a city-owned parking garage with no proximate incompatible land uses. Does everyone concur? E, is adequately served by public facilities and services. That standard has been met. The building is served by adequate sidewalks, streets, both CTA and metro stations, and is located beneath a public parking garage. F, will not cause undue traffic congestion. That standard has been met. The building is served by adequate sidewalks, streets, public transportation below a public parking garage, and the applicant has outlined a crowd management plan and has demonstrated a willingness to monitor impacts on pedestrian and vehicular circulation and make appropriate changes if necessary. G, preserve significant historical and architectural resources. That's not applicable. H, preserve significant natural and environmental resources, not applicable. And I, complies with all other applicable regulations. Staff determined that standard has been met. The project complies with other applicable regulations to move forward with the special use process. Someone please call the motion.
I'll make the motion. I move in the matter ZBA 19 ZMJV-0093 regarding the property at 1804 Maple Avenue that we recommend to City Council to approve the special use requested with the following conditions. One, that MedMen complete its acquisition of the license and become the lessee for the space at issue. Two, that the hours of operation be limited from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. Three, that employees be prohibited from parking on the city streets. Four, that the special use, well, never mind, because the lease is the control. Four would be that the applicant otherwise develop the property or run its business in compliance with the documents and testimonies submitted. And in particular, I'd call out the crowd management plan and the security plan.
can I just say, with regard to the condition that MedMen complete, I keep wanting to say MedMen, complete their purchase. If they don't complete their purchase, then Pharmacon LLC may find another purchaser. So I'm not sure that that should be a condition on the special use. The city's either going to grant the special use or not. But are you saying that on the basis of MedMen being the operator that has that experience?
Yes, and the fact that that is planned, and so
Okay.
and is how this application
I'm
has
fine
been
with that.
presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the ayes have it. Your special use has been granted. Thank you. Please see Melissa for the next steps. Okay, the next case is 1012 to 1014 Davis Street. Melissa, will you please read this into the record?
Grant Manny, broker, submits for a special use for a daycare center child for Guidepost Montessori to provide daycare services for children 6 years and younger in the D2 Downtown Retail Core District, zoning code section 61134. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes a recommendation to City Council, the determining body for this case.
Good evening.
Good evening. Grant, for the record, Grant Manny of Location Finders International. Our office address is 9440 Enterprise Drive, Mokina, Illinois, 60448. Our special use application is for the redevelopment of the existing building at 1012 to 1014 Davis for the use of a daycare facility that's with the Montessori concept. Our tenant is International Montessori School that has various concepts throughout the country and the world, but has the concept in this use. The proposed use is a daycare for up to the ages of 6 years old. There'll be approximately 122 students at the facility, and we plan to put a playground at the rear of the facility that's approximately 5,000 square feet with 7 parking spaces at the rear of that. And with the concept that is the tenant, we dealt with this concept throughout the country. We own 6 of their facilities. They're a great benefit to the community and participate heavily in a lot of community events. They tend to participate as well in nearby businesses by sort of getting the kids interactive into all of that, getting them introduced to sort of real life material. The special uses for this property is due to the fact that the entire building would be daycare versus the requirement that 75% of the frontage would be retail. We worked out, we at the DRPR staff meeting, we agreed to provide additional staff parking at the 1800 Maple parking garage in the amount of 10 parking spaces through a long-term lease with the City of Evanston. Additionally, we feel that the majority of people will the majority of the employees will likely take public transportation. The building is very close to both the Metro station and the L station. And due to the proximity to the downtown area, we believe that a lot of the employees and staff will either walk or take public transportation to the facility. In addition, the traffic, which was a concern from the staff at the earlier meeting, the traffic, it's unlike a normal school scenario where with daycare the drop-off and pickup period is an extended period. For example, in the drop-off period, the drop-off is from somewhere between 7 and 9 a.m. Parents aren't usually there for very long, and because of the staggered drop-off, you don't get a lot of bunching up of cars as we've experienced in other facilities. Additionally, there's a reduction in the number of 122 students. A portion of those students are a family with 2 kids at the facility, so that reduces the amount of traffic overall. Additionally, with the close proximity of downtown and close proximity of to the nearby neighbors, we'll get some potentially parents walking up with their kids or on the way to public transportation. We plan to reuse the existing building, so the current facade will be kept. We plan to try to integrate the 2 different facades, since the buildings were separate at one point, by painting the eastern facade to sort of match the western facade and incorporating the windows to sort of match the windows, so it looks like one building but continues with the existing architecture. Additionally, we plan not to modify the building structure in any way. We're going to keep the existing envelope and rehab the entire interior of the building. So the tenant will be on both the first and second floor, where the basement will be unused.
Can you, so just to clarify, I believe the packet says that this facility will have kids ages six and younger, but then the guidepost materials that are part of the packet says that it runs through elementary.
Yeah, so the Guidepost brand nationwide, and Jocelyn here is from Guidepost, so if we have additional questions, I can have her speak to it. But nationwide, they have both elementary and, do you guys have a high school yet?
We have middle school and high school, not within the Chicago area yet.
But this facility
But this
will be strictly daycare for kids ages 6 and younger.
Correct.
What, your youngest child you're going to be accepting, is it infant care? You will? Okay. A significant amount of infant care.
In general, we have like one infant classroom and then twice the amount of toddlers and then preschool age children. So there's a proportion.
Okay.
And can you please speak to the hours of operation?
Yeah, so the hours of operation are from 7 to 6 daily, Monday through Friday. There is occasionally events for parents during weekends that occurs at our other sites. That's occurred 2 to 3 weekends a year, and they usually have it in their either interior or open exterior space, depending on the time of the year.
Can you describe the alley drop-off that is being proposed? I attempted to understand that and drive through that, and as I was looking to enter the alley from Maple, it's closed, so I'm a little confused and would like a little clarification as to what's being proposed on the alley.
So that's a private alley. The public alley is directly to the south of there. But regardless, we had proposed with the staff the two separate site plans. One was with parking, one was with the drop-off lane. With the parking, the experience at other schools is parents will pull up into the parking and then take their child out of the car and walk them into the building via a secured door at the rear of the site. Or in the case of using the front, they'll park in the parking spaces at the front of the building, the public parking spaces, and bring their child in through a secure door at the front of the site.
So what is being proposed? I'm a little confused. A combination of both?
No, so the staff had recommended that we provide both just for your decision as to which way. It doesn't make a difference to us as to which way, but I think if
So can you just walk us through, because I think staff's preference seems to be that there be a drive lane
Right.
rather than parking. So can you walk us through how that traffic flow will work?
Yeah, so with the parking, the traffic flow seems to be a little bit better than the drive lane. The parking allows.
Can you walk us through the drive lane?
Drive lane.
Thanks.
If you want, that's on I think the last slide. But the drive lane in the schools, for example, we own a school at Damon and North Avenue in the city. They have no parking whatsoever. There's zero parking. So they, on Pierce, which is right off of Damon, they have 3 sort of stalls that they can pull up in, and then there is a coordinated effort with the staff to then basically meet the parent at the curb and then escort the child into the building. In this case, the staff would have to meet the parents at the alley side, and then sort of escort the child into the building. So the parents, in that case, would not be able to get out of the car.
So there will be an entrance, though, off the alley into the building?
Correct. And the issue with the stacking, as you can see, is with the stacking, you lose a couple cars. The concern was that the stacking would go into the alley, because instead of having 7 cars, you can really only fit 3, maybe 4 cars.
That was the observation that I had when I went through the packet as well, that if you have the stacking, you will end up blocking the alley.
Yeah, because if there's stacking, you'll get waiting, and that's what we're trying to avoid.
Exactly, and if there are 6 or 7 spaces there that people can pull into and out of, in addition to the parking in front. And I think that the times that people are coming, the parking on Davis at that location is not, it's not quite as utilized as it is at lunchtime or when people are going to the hardware store or whatnot. So but that's my perception. I would say that your parking spaces in the back make a lot more sense and would probably result in a lot less blockage of that alley, which will create a problem.
Melissa, can you let us know why staff's preference is to have the driving lane rather than the parking spaces?
It wasn't specifically a preference. We just wanted the applicant to explore that and see what kind of option that would be.
Is this a two-way alley or one-way?
It's a two-way alley.
Two-way alley. And how wide is it? Is it 16 feet?
In the survey, we didn't measure the alley. The new topographical study we're doing will measure the alley. I believe it looks like a 16-foot alley, but I couldn't confirm that.
And you have something like another 16 feet for the parking?
Yes. Yeah. The measurements should be on the original study.
It should be 16 or...
Right there, you'd have to zoom in. I can pull it up here.
So is it very common in your experience to have both entrances from Davis and from the alley to be, I mean, with personnel waiting for kids? Can you afford it to have two entrances that will be both secured and you have somebody accompanying kids?
So the front entrance wouldn't have personnel because there'd be an ability to park. So a parent in the front entrance could remove their child from the car and enter through the secured entrance at the front.
Because it's very immediate to the street.
Correct.
It's 20 feet public alley. Okay, thank you.
Sir, you have 122 students. How many employees is that?
It's approximately 22 employees.
At any one time that will be on staff?
At the max.
At the max, it's 22.
And that's full-time employees. There is part-time employees, and that can vary throughout the day. If you want to speak to that more clearly.
I'm Jocelyn Scotty. I'm the VP of Schools for Higher Ground and Guidepost. In general, 22 would be at steady state. When we have 122 students, that would be the full capacity. In general, there's flex because no one's working 7 to 6, and so when somebody leaves, somebody else would come in and sort of like share that shift of time.
And so those parking spaces in the Maple Street garage is for those 22 people?
I believe that's the intention.
That's
yes.
the intention.
Yes.
Okay.
What we see at our other schools in the Chicago area, especially in Wicker Park, Mag Mile, and in the West Loop, most of our employees do take public transportation and they don't bring their cars. Their cars are a hindrance to them getting around, and I have a feeling that will be the same here.
So those are the other places where you run a school, the West Loop and...
In this area, yes. We have one open in Naperville as well, and we have 6 more coming by fall of 2020, and hopefully Evanston is one of them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can you speak to somewhere in the packet, there was, I think, a recommendation by staff that there be consideration of short-term parking permitted on Davis Street to, I think, up to 10 parking spaces that then would allow only 20-minute parking?
Yes, so to speak further about the rear parking concept, that parking at the rear would be exclusive to parents. It wouldn't, employees, there'd be signage, it wouldn't be allowed. In that discussion with Michael Riviera, it came up that, having an ability, a parent for 10 minutes or 5 minutes in certain cases to get out of their car without having to go to the Pay app to do that would be helpful, and I think, in Michael's opinion, might be helpful for the entire street. Not necessarily dedicated to this development, but it was Michael's opinion that providing 10 short-term parking spaces might be beneficial to all the businesses.
It occurs to me that that would be excessive. Just as a person that commutes into that train station on Metra and so is walking through that area at a time when, you're talking about the pickup, I think you said between 3:30 and 6 or 3 and 6. It's a very busy area. There's more, it's a highly used block in terms of restaurants, a new coffee shop, a new art school. So parking is in demand there. So the idea of taking 10 parking spaces away from those that would use it for longer than 20 minutes seems to me is not supportive of this retail corridor at its heart. So I think that's something that we'd want to consider further.
It wasn't sort of a demand on our side, it was more Michael's suggestion on maybe
You know, and I agree with Lisa on that point, but then, you know, parents who are coming on a regular basis, they'll have, you know, to flip to their app and give
Yeah, and I
themselves
have
20
the app,
minutes.
yeah.
I mean,
It's not a big deal.
that's easy.
Are these kids going to eat during the day at school, and what are they going to eat? Do their parents pack them a little lunch, or do you bring in food, or what?
So in the state of Illinois, we're required to provide the food, and so we do catered lunch for all students, and we provide the food, snacks and lunch.
So where is that food coming from?
We use a couple different vendors, one of which is Gorilla Gourmet or Gourmet Gorilla, and the other one is Green Monkey, and we use them interchangeably at our schools, depending on what the timing is and when they can deliver.
And what size vehicle comes to deliver food for 122 kids?
I think they're vans. They're like refrigerated vans that they deliver to most of the private schools in the area because everyone's required to feed children who are this age.
And where will the vans load and unload from?
I would assume the parking spaces are in the back.
Yeah.
And generally, it's pretty quick. They come in, they wheel their stuff in, and they're out.
We'd either,
Put 'em in.
I'm not certain that there's an Evanston regulation to it, but could either do the rear or the front. I'm not sure it would make a difference to the operations.
And that's daily,
Yes.
daily, once. Okay.
What time is that today?
It's usually like 10:30 in the morning so that they're ready for lunch and they go in the ovens and wait.
And it's just one truck, correct?
Yeah, it's one truck.
So in one of the things that were discussed on Dapper was about windows looking to Davis, and you explained that it is okay to be fully transparent. That's fine with me. I don't expect any problems with that. But what happens after 6 o'clock evening? Are these windows dead? No light, nothing? How? And this is a street that we expect to be commercial, fully lit with nice presentation on the windows. Can you apply some architectural features so that these are not dead windows during the night?
Yeah.
Or at least till 10 o'clock.
We
let's say.
certainly could come up with something creative to.
That's
find a
important, by
solution.
the way. I would say that we have to have such kind of a recommendation so that
Is
this
there
does not
something that
feel
you-
like
is there
a
something-
dead spot on Davis.
Is there something that has been successful before in that manner?
Well, you have an architect, they will
Yeah.
find out.
I appreciate that point, and agree that that would be important.
You know, currently it's audio consultants and they're kind of like blacked out windows as it is. And that's not a problem during the day, but like you say, in the evening, it is very dreary. So even if it was just lighting, that would be good.
What does the music school do across the street? Because I think their hours of operations are.
The music school across the street, they've got
One
like a
River-
plate glass. That's an art school.
Yeah, the art school.
Or the art school, sorry.
You know, I think they have displays.
They have a
They have
glass.
nice lighting.
Yeah,
so
you
when
can
you're-
see inside.
When you're walking by as a pedestrian, it doesn't feel like dead space. You know, to Carol's point, you know, you're right. When you're walking by audio consultants, it's a dead space in the middle of that block. And I think I think the economic development staff has been doing a good job in attracting new users to that block. And so, I think a concern is sort of that use as it relates to the other retail uses in that area, in addition to sort of I feel like the amount of congestion that it could add to this area. So I appreciate your thinking on those points.
Any other questions for him? Thank you, sir. We're going to close the record and have our own discussion. Thoughts from the board?
Thank you.
Once again, it's a proven business going into a vacant space, and I think fulfilling need in Evanston. If they can have a successful operation in Wicker Park at North and Damon, they can most definitely pull it off at this location.
Can we discuss the two drop-off alternatives and what our recommendation is going to be to City Council?
Well, if I may say, I somehow prefer the parking option. I'm not sure whether 4 cars, as they are showing over there on the drop-off, will be enough. And I know they both have cons and pros, but 7 cars seem a little bit better than 4 cars and another 3 or 4 waiting and clogging the alley over there. The alley is 20 feet. This means that backup will not be a problem. So, and people are responsible with the kids and then getting out of the parking space. I prefer the parking option.
I think I agree. I mean, and also the nature of the parking spaces doesn't need to change. If they're parking there during hours that require meter payment, they'll pay or they'll get tickets, right?
Yeah.
And it's daycare, so they're going to drop off and they're going to leave. It's not like parent parkers are going to take the parking spaces and utilize what otherwise would be commercial uses. This is also really before commercial time anyway, at least in the morning.
Well, and Scott, to your point, if the parents do park and drop their kids off and stay, that's because they're utilizing the businesses in the area, which is a good thing.
No, that's true. But then I also wonder, though, what will happen. So what will happen, quote unquote, after school when the commercial district is being used? Where are people going to park and pick their kids up from? But I guess that's a parent problem and not a zoning board problem, right? I mean, they're going to have to find a place to park and go get their kid.
Well, yes, but one of the conditions that we're asked to consider as a part of special use is whether there's negative consequences as a part of the congestion. And so I think that is something that we need to consider, whether, the congestion that would be caused by, that pickup time is going to negatively impact that existing retail corridor.
But
I agree with your point that, it's a established business going into a vacant building, and I support that. But I want to make sure if we move to approve to City Council that we're thoughtful about the conditions that help to mitigate, I guess, 2 points. One would be that it's to Carol's point, that it's a business that is essentially dead after 6 o'clock at night in the middle of sort of a corridor where there's businesses, coffee shops, and other things where we want to support an active pedestrian life. And the second is to do what we can to mitigate congestion. And so we should be thoughtful in the way we recommend that to City Council. That's the way the board is.
I agree with the thoughtfulness of that. And I think the use itself is the bigger question for me, and certainly the one to flag for City Council. And I guess what I'm saying is I don't think this use is going to cause any undue congestion because these are temporary parkers and they're going to find a place to park and they're going to pay the metered rate, which goes to the city, and that's good. And then they're going to get their kids and leave or drop their kids off and leave. And so I don't think that will cause any undue congestion. It is meant to be a commercial space that would naturally require the use of parking regardless of the use. So I think regardless of what type of business goes in that space, there's going to be people using parking. So I don't think this use is any different or causes any greater burden on parking or traffic than any other business that might take the space.
Well, and additionally, it's the testimony of the applicant that the pickup times, just as the drop-off times, are staggered. And as a result, they're not likely to experience and again, if it becomes a problem, that's an enforcement issue with, parking. If people start trying to put their emergency lights on behind cars that are parked to go in and get their children, that's something that they will deal with, but that hasn't been their experience. And again, North and Damon I can attest that there's not any parking there, but they, keep the flow going. So I think that there's, for the type of use, I think that there's ample parking. And again, those parents who do come and stay and pick their kids up and say, let's go to Taco Diablo for dinner, that's a good thing.
What are the, I'm blanking, how have we handled other similar sort of day uses where there have been weekend events or night events held that are sort of related to the day special use? Like, obviously, we don't want to grant further hours of operation and then have them use it as like a rentable party space or something, but if it strikes me that having like, parent fundraiser is fair game for a school daycare center. Right.
You could limit it in a number of ways. You could limit it to only accessory activities that are specifically put on by Guidepost Montessori. You could also just limit it to, based on the documents and testimony on record, which I believe they stated there would be a couple activities a year. So if there's suddenly 20 activities, then they would not be in compliance with their special use. So you could go a couple different ways.
I feel like that'd be
Possibly
fair,
using-
maybe not as many as 20. That sounds like regular something. But
Well, 20 a year is not that much, depending on,
how late and how long? And,
yeah.
But it's 20, so maybe, I don't know.
I think if we
On
make
occasion.
it uses that are accessory to the daycare, then it's
Yeah, on occasion, yeah.
right. Then it's
Yeah, a
self-limiting.
reasonable number of
I don't think we need
accessory uses.
I don't think we need to regulate the number as long as the use is accessory to the daycare use.
I agree.
I agree with that as well. Any other comments on this proposal? Anything you want to add before we go through the special use standards? Thank you. Okay, for the ZBA to recommend that the City Council grant a special use, the ZBA must find that the proposed special use, A, is one of the listed special uses for the zoning district in which the property lies. The standard has been met. Daycare center, child, is allowed under the special uses section for the D2 downtown retail core district. B, complies with the purposes and policies of the comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance. The standard has been met. The use is compliant with the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive general plan. The proposed use promotes growth and redevelopment of business and commercial areas, as well as strengthens Evanston's economic base by adding a compatible use in the downtown which directly supports and makes existing and future office and business uses more attractive to tenants and employees. C, does not cause a negative cumulative effect in combination with the existing special uses or as a category of land use. Staff has not received any comments opposing the proposal, right, Melissa? No comments opposing.
Correct.
Right. The proposed use is complementary to and supportive of proximate businesses and office use. Does everyone agree? Anyone opposed? Okay. D, does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. That standard has been met. The proposed use would occupy a currently vacant space, which would add to the value of the property while drawing additional foot traffic to neighboring businesses along Davis Street. E, is adequately served by public facilities and services. The standard has been met. The building is served by adequate sidewalks, streets, and close proximity to parking garages as well as both CTA and metro stations. F, does not cause undue traffic congestion. The standard has been met. The building is served by adequate sidewalks, streets, adjacent alley, and close proximity to parking garages and public transportation. The alley adjacent pickup drop-off area is adequate, and the applicant's willingness to provide employee parking in the Maple Garage will improve circulation and reduce congestion during the peak periods. G, preserves significant historical and architectural resources. Standard has been met. The applicant has demonstrated a willingness to maintain and preserve significant terracotta detailing, as well as reverse prior detrimental storefront level alterations and lighting. as we discussed, particularly related to the inappropriate bulkheads and the storefront windows that are darkened. H, preserve significant natural and environmental resources. That's not applicable. And I, complies with all other applicable regulations. The project complies with applicable regulations to move forward with the special use, so therefore the standard has been met.
All right, I'll make a motion in the matter ZBA 19 ZMJV-0085 regarding the properties at 1012 to 1014 Davis Street, that we recommend to City Council to approve the special use requested, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall enter into a long-term lease agreement with the city for no less than 10 parking spaces in the Maple Avenue garage, but sufficient spaces to accommodate all employees who require parking. 2, the applicant shall repave in concrete the alley apron on Maple Avenue, patch portions of the alley as required, and provide supplemental signage and lighting as deemed necessary by the Public Works Agency in order to sufficiently utilize the alley, as may be required. 3, that no employees will be permitted to use city parking on the streets. 3, that the hours of operation be limited from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., with the exception that accessory activities will be permitted outside of those hours so long as they're accessory to the daycare use and put on by guidepost. 3, that the design incorporate, Carol, fix this if I'm saying it wrong, that the design incorporate street-facing design scheme that's consistent with the commercial character of the neighborhood.
Exactly.
Including for after hours. And last, that the applicant otherwise develop and use the property in compliance with the evidence and testimony submitted.
All in favor?
Can I clarify a point? I agree with all of those. I just wanted to, do we somehow need to address the staff's recommendation to make 10 short-term parking spaces on Davis, or that's not a part of?
That was just discussion that Michael Rivera had with the applicant.
Okay, so we do not have to need, okay.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Your motion passes. Please see Melissa about next steps. Okay, on to other business, the 2020 ZBA schedule. Oh, okay. So let's make some motions on the continued items. Who wants to make the motion at 1224 Oak Street that was continued till 12/3?
I move that the the Oak Street case be moved to 12/3.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's talk about, do we have to talk about 2715 Hurd Street? It's withdrawn?
No, that one is withdrawn. There's nothing more we need to do with that one. But at the moment, also continue 1031 Sherman Avenue.
Someone make a motion.
I move that the Sherman Avenue case be moved to 12/3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on to a couple of things, the 2020 ZBA schedule, I believe that was in the packet and everyone got a chance to review it. There is one change needed already. We had tentatively on there for January. We are bumped from council chambers that day because city council will be in here. So whatever the preference would be, we can go 1 week earlier in room G300 because preservation is in council chambers. Or we can go on that same day, but in G300, or we can go 1 week late and then we can be in council chambers.
What's the date in January?
It would be, the typical date would be January 21st. So we can do the 14th, 21st, or 28th.
I think we do the 21st because I'll be out of town. I would say that, no, I would say that I would be fine maintaining the schedule and just moving the room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
just to get it going, because the 28th is the end of the month. Then we got February's right there.
Okay, so with that, there are no other changes that are needed on the city's end. If everyone is comfortable with it, you can accept the schedule, or does anyone else have any conflicts they can think of?
No conflicts. I have a question. It's been very helpful, Muffy, when you've sent those as calendar reminders. Is that something that staff can do to send those out as a calendar reminder so that so that it appears on everyone's calendar?
Sure, I'll do that in the next week.
That would be fantastic.
Okay, so are we accepting the changes? Who wants to make that motion? We're accepting the schedule.
I move that we accept the schedule of the 2020 ZBA schedule as outlined by staff.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
Dang. Now we get to deal with you.
Rub it in.
With that note, a very special thank you to Scott Gingold, who has made it for the full 10 years, 2 full terms on the zoning board. That does not happen often.
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you for your time and your service. I hope you will be joining Plan Commission or another committee soon. But thank you for everything.
Thank you. And I would just say it's been an honor and pleasure serving with all of you and with everybody else who preceded you all.
I want to thank you especially, Scott, because a lot of times when I came in here and thought, oh, I'm not going back to these meetings, they're boring, you always made it so much better for me. You were always so graceful and kind. Thank you.
And we all want to thank you for your very succinct, detailed, comprehensive motions. We don't know what we're going to do without you, Scott.
So someone here needs to take over writing down what all of the conditions will be as everyone is discussing it, because that's how Scott gets those good motions. He's writing notes
The whole
things that are
time.
coming up.
Yes.
So
Lisa's got it.
Over 10 years, Scott, your mind has really changed the city of Evanston. I want you to know that. All of your legal opinions and all those conditions. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Scott. It was a pleasure. I always admire your eloquent speeches. I told you that's something that I am missing, of course, but you're great at that. So I thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Yes, thanks, Scott. And for your always bumping heads at some point, whether it was with Mary Beth or with one of us, but it's always good to see the other side. and hear the other
I
side.
consider that to be a good, healthy part of the discourse we have here.
I agree. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I have one more comment.
Okay.
Our next meeting is a specially scheduled meeting for December 3rd. There is good and bad news to all of that. At the moment, we have 5 cases scheduled, some bumped from other meetings and rearranged. I don't know if we will end up with that many or not. If we do, then we will probably reschedule at least one of them to our next regular meeting, which is December 17th. But if one of those cases drops out for whatever reason, then we will not have a meeting on December 17th. So I will keep you posted as we find out about that. But in the meantime, on December 3rd, our chair will not be here, and I believe we do not have a vice chair since Violetta was the vice chair before becoming chair. So who would like to run that meeting?
New guy.
New guy, that is so mean. That's what you did to me the first meeting. I think Myrna has almost been here as long as me.
I guess.
I guess that's so enthusiastic.
For stepping up.
The problem is I don't know right now what my schedule is. And I've got a project in Pittsburgh that is, I got to go home and work on it right now. So if I don't have a conflict, yes, no problem.
Do you have any idea when you'll know if you have the conflict?
Give me about a week and I will know.
Okay, that's fine. Then just let me know when you know for sure. If Myrna cannot make it, who's the backup that I contact next?
I will be the backup to Myrna.
Thank you. Okay.
Melissa, I may have a conflict and not be able to attend, so you might want to do an early quorum call.
That's for the 3rd?
Right.
And where's our new guy?
See, that's when he starts, when Scott leaves.
He will be here on the 3rd.
Melissa, is it true, in fact, that we have a new board member ready to
Yes. City Council was very on the ball, and the new member was appointed a couple of months ago and is eager to get started. His name is Max Punchel, if I said his last name right. And I believe he is a structural engineer, I think, so that'll be a nice addition to the board.
I actually spoke with him before he agreed to accept it because he kind of wanted to know what it's all about, and he seemed very.
And you're who he
attentive.
called?
Yeah. Remember, we were all eager to join the board at one point.
Yeah, I don't know.
Thank you for speaking kindly, so he joined.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all of the updates that I have.
Okay. Honest to God, well, you're crossing everything you got. Right. You'll have fun. This is what I told Myrna. Oh, you'll have fun.
Unless she has. I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Stay here if you like.